future.
There are no people.
There are no people in the future.
No people at all.
There are no people in the future.
Where did all my people go?
There are no people in the future.
Let me try my people call. Where are all my people? Where are all my people? I guess I'll fly away.
Hey everybody, welcome. It is Friday, June 4th, 2021. Welcome to Raging Chicken's Out to Coot podcast. This is Kev Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken. Yes, each week I get to talk to, a guy who's going to give me a bucket full of middle-aged millennial angst. You know him, Sean Kitchen. And as we talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly in state and national politics. Yes, we are streaming live on our YouTube channel. So if you're there right now, hello to everybody who's tuned in so far. Make sure you smash that subscribe button. Make sure you hit that little bell so you get that notification every time we go live. And make sure to like the stream. You like the stream, that boosts everything kind of up and gets the word out to everyone. I have to say, I'm so excited about today's show that I almost forgot to bring up the show notes to read because I was so excited. It's been a fun it's been a fun day. 24 hours, we'll call it. Yeah, here we go. Anyways, on today's show, the Arizona Republican election audit sham led by the QAnon owner of Cyber Ninjas is quickly becoming the launching pad for national right-wing organizing strategies to delegitimize democracy and fan the flames of extremism. And CNN reports that QAnon-inspired right-wing radicals are taking to Telegram, a social messaging platform that is far more welcoming of extremists. They're using Telegram to deepen their conspiracies and plan. Yes, the latest one is talking about Trump's reinstallation in August. How about that? And this past weekend, former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn seemed to endorse a coup at the, quote, For God Country Patriot Roundup. Yeah, that is a QAnon conference in Dallas, Texas, so you'll be excused if you weren't familiar with it. But when Flynn was asked why can't a military coup, like the one that's happening in Myanmar, why can't that happen to the United States? And Flynn replied, quote, no reason. I mean, it should happen here. No reason, unquote. Yep. You'll recall that it was also Flynn who called on Trump to invoke martial law to force new elections in key states back in, December, November? Crazy. Meanwhile, the anti-democracy movement has been hard at work on their inside game as Republican lawmakers have continued to pass voting restrictions around the country. The Washington Post reports that this year has seen the introduction of 253 bills designed to restrict voting access across 43 states. And that comes from a new report from the Brennan Center, which also reports that as of mid-May, 22 voting restriction laws have been passed in 14 states. This is ones that have already been passed. And Media Matters for America released a list of all the QAnon supporters running for Congress in 2022. You might as well just print that one out, keep that in your back pocket, make sure it's bookmarked on all your browsers because it's going to be very valuable going forward this year. Miami is considering a proposal to build a 20-foot seawall to save the city from the impacts of climate change. As reported in the New York Times, quote, 6 miles of it, in fact, mostly inland, running parallel to the coast through neighborhoods, except for a 1-mile stretch right on Biscayne Bay, past gleaming sky rises of Brickell, in the city's financial district. Yes, it's going to be like a $6 billion project. I wonder why. We need a seawall. And the FBI is investigating Trump-appointed Postmaster General Louis DeJoy for illegal political fundraising for Trump back when he was ran his own business. And Trump's blog is shut down for good, only a month after its launch. Wah, wah, wah. Today's PA focus, Daryl Metcalf's annual Right to Bear Arms rally is this Monday. And to put it in the words of Stephen Caruso on Twitter, it's going to be lit. Yeah, here we go. Guns out, man. Sun's out. The Arizona election audit sham attracted PA State Senator Doug Mastriano because of course it did. And State Senators Chris Douche and State Representative Rob Kaufman, they traveled down there like moths to the flame. Yes, Mastriano finally makes it to primetime on Wednesday night on Chris Hayes All In, and actually following on Thursday night too as well. Mastriano features prominently in the opening segments about the rise of the dangerous anti-democracy movement, or the American delusion, as was the text up on the screen. Chris's report points to Mastriano's visit to Arizona as a case in point of how all this stuff works. And if you're looking for kind of more bold action, well, State Senator Scott Perry ran into the woods to avoid taking questions from local media. That's according to a report from Raw Story and actually a CBS local. Former State Representative Ryan Costello is not okay. At least that's how things have seemed last night on Twitter, and apparently into today as he continues to block people left and right. Apparently, PA Spotlight is squatting in his head after they published info showing that Costello donates to a school board PAC that recruits QAnon conspiracy nuts to run for office. Yes, he didn't like that too much. He got his foo-foos hurt. Block, 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 block. And State Senator Lindsey Williams is preparing to introduce a bill in the PA Senate requiring lawmakers to publicly post how they're spending millions of dollars in taxpayer-funded expenses. Oh, I can't wait to see those. What kind of lunch you having? And the New Jersey GOP primary for this year's race in governor has turned into a Trump bootlicker competition. It's pretty crazy, actually. It's pretty crazy. Allegheny County DA Stephen Zappala found himself in a scandal this week. He sent an email to prosecutors telling them to stop accepting plea deals from a black lawyer who called his office systemically racist. Way to pull a racism, DA Zappala. I don't know what's happening to my words today. Sorry. In today's last call on Wednesday, NASA Administrator Bill Nelson announced that the space agency is planning 2 missions to Venus in the late 2020s. The 2 missions, the Da Vinci Plus and Veritas, will gather evidence about possible microbial life in Venus's atmosphere and more thoroughly map the planet's surface. It's been over 3 decades since NASA launched missions to Venus. And a new documentary, this one's close to my heart, called Woman in Motion, tells the story of how Nichelle Nichols, and if you know any original Star Trek, Nichelle Nichols played Lieutenant Uhura. That was kind of groundbreaking. She's an African-American woman, kind of in a leadership role. This is back in the 60s or whatever. Anyways, yes, it's the documentary is about how Nichelle Nichols helped pioneer the NASA recruiting program to hire people of color and the first women astronauts back in the 1970s and 1980s. And the documentary is currently streaming on Paramount Plus. Yes, and I believe that you can get a one-time trial on that if you don't already subscribe. And Grist, great environmental publication Grist, releases a list of new environmental films that you should add to your watch list this summer. We'll talk to you a little about some of those and some kind of current books that I'm reading, right? How to Destroy Surveillance Capitalism by Cory Doctorow, Cultural Warlords Against Civility. I'll talk more about them in today's last call. Want to tune into the Rick Smith Show on Free Speech TV this and every Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern. You can stream the show live at freespeech.org. You can also tune in the Dish Network, DirecTV, or through the Free Speech TV app on Roku. Make sure to subscribe to the Rick Smith Show's daily podcast, too, on iTunes, Podbean, wherever you get your podcasts. And you absolutely must check out the Sisters of the Night Caucus podcast. You can find it on Anchor, Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you get your podcasts. The amazing PA women stirring the cauldron behind this podcast rock the house. And they know where the bodies are buried. Spooky, right? Make sure to follow them on Twitter, too, at The Night Caucus. That's at The Night Caucus on Twitter. Attention gamers, the Game Inn is a Quakertown-based black family-owned gaming store. Yes, they're friends of the show, and they've got everything you need for your gaming fun. Yes, they got retro stuff, they got new stuff, they got collectibles, they got games, and your kids get a discount with every A on the report card. Check out them. Look them up at The Game Inn. That's with 2 N's, The Game Inn. On Facebook, on Twitter, it's at The Game Inn. They're fantastic. Just get in touch with them. You can message them about any questions you might have. If you're looking for something special, check them out. And shoot them an email at thegameinpa@gmail.com. Special shout out, as always, to Jonathan Mann, who wrote our intro song, There Are No People in the Future. Check out all his great stuff on his YouTube page and follow him on Twitter at SongADayMan. That's with 2 N's, at SongADayMan on Twitter. And I've been teasing this for a while, but man, the everything kind of the last pieces fell in place for a freaking amazing June lineup. for Out to Coop Live. Just check this out. So this Monday, right? This Monday, July 7th at 7 p.m., we'll have Colleen Gray Wynn. She is running for the PA State Rep in the PA 87th District. Absolutely fantastic. On Monday, July 14th, we're going to have Cory Doctorow. If you don't know who he is, he's a science fiction writer, activist, and journalist. And we'll be talking about his nonfiction book, How to Destroy Surveillance Capitalism, and hopefully some of his fiction dealing with those same issues as well. On Wednesday, July 16th, yes, it's a specially Wednesday show, we'll have Kadita Kenner on. She is the executive director of the New Pennsylvania Project, right? And literally right before the show today, too, as well, we locked this one in. On Monday, June 21st, we'll have Erin Wallace on. She is the owner of the Devil's Den restaurant in Philly, and she's the co-leader of the Philly chapter of the Pink Boots Society. The Pink Boots Society advocates for women in the craft brewing industry. We're going to be talking about all these the craft beer industry kind of shining a light on the misogyny in the industry, and some of the organizing that's happening within the craft brewing industry, particularly among women in the craft brewing industry, like really making this a watershed moment in the history of the industry. It's absolutely incredible. So I can't wait to talk to her on Monday, June 21st. And that's just to get started. We've got other things that are getting lined up. We're probably going to be doing some pre-records because we got some vacation time coming up, but I want to keep the interviews coming for that's moving forward. So what makes all this possible? You do. That's right. Our members, right? Our members, our listeners, our supporters are the ones who make this all possible. Because look, if we want a progressive future, we need progressive media. Support Pull No Punches homegrown progressive media today. Become a patron of Raging Chicken for as little as $5 a month. Just go to patreon.com/rcpress today. Look, we're here for the fight, but we need you. Become a patron for the price of a good beer once a month. Help keep the media in the movement in the media. Become a patron for as little as $5 a month by going to patreon.com/rcpress today. Sean, man, it's been a week, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it's been a fun week. I'm sorry if my screen is coming out pretty dark. There's a storm rolling through here in Harrisburg right now. So.
Oh, it's coming through now?
Yeah, we're gonna be having storms off and on all day.
Did you get hit last night?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I passed out pretty early. Didn't wake up till 5:30, so I didn't really hear a thing.
Okay. I was watching some TV, was doing some stuff. I was actually watching news on my computer, and doing some laundry last night, and then the internet cut out here. It was out for about 45 minutes, and I was able to find that it actually wasn't just my internet, but it was like, good sections of Philadelphia and kind of the I-95 corridor, and some other places too. Some storms went through. So
yeah, I've been becoming more of a morning person now. So it's just like now
I hear that. Like last night you're like, okay, I'm going to bed now. I'm like, Sean, it's like 8:30, man. It's like
I'm used to getting up at like 5:30 in the morning. I told a couple of my friends I'd like getting up like 5:30 and going to the gym at that time.
Yeah.
And they called me a boomer. Like it's a very boomer thing to do.
It is, man. You're going to be a great old person. I'm telling you, you really are.
But no, it's been.
You got to stretch those old people legs now, right? You're gonna get yourself all prepped for it.
Yeah. I have to work my back out in the morning and stretch everything out.
Yeah. No, I hear you. Well, look, we got it. Like, just all
ton of crazy shit.
All I'm gonna say is like, if you're tuning into the show right now, make sure that you stick around for today's PA Focus, because it's going to be a lot of fun. Very, very cool. Yes, I got Colleen just said here, yay, Pink Boots, as a woman who used to be in the craft brewing industry. Super excited for that. And for our own live on Monday, yes, that's Colleen Grade Win tuning in right now. Yes, thank you, Colleen. I'm very, very excited for the Pink Boots stuff too as well. It's going to be really cool. Okay, so you and I've talked a little bit about this already, just kind of informally, but it seems like there's this, I guess to say there's all these things that are coming together. I mean, there's what's happening in Arizona right now with this audit sham, and the kind of the export of that model, right? As we see this kind of start to roll across the country. And of course, our very own Mastriano, right? Doug Mastriano kind of heading down there too as well, looking to kind of bring that to Pennsylvania. I mean, this stuff seems super, one, very familiar in terms of how these folks work, and potentially really dangerous. I mean, that's kind of like what's been going through my mind about all this stuff this week.
Yeah, and also I feel like the people who say that like this is about appeasing Trump and it's just like to divert us from the actual issues is wrong and dangerous. Like this is this is continuing the momentum of the reopen rallies, of the stop the steal rallies, the post-election stuff, and now like this is just another chapter. The audit the vote stuff that we're seeing here in Pennsylvania, and like others, is another page in that chapter, like, or another chapter in that book. Like it's just like this is like, I think we have to talk about, and we really haven't really talked about this, but like the right wing really expanded their movement over the past year. Not just like the right wing, but the fringe, the radical fringe right wing, the white supremacists, the neo-fascist right wing. And like they did that through capitalizing on the reopen rallies, the shutdowns. They're doing it with the school board races right now. And they're also doing it with like things on critical race theory, like things like the culture war issues, and then also with like the audit the vote stuff. Like there is no policy items coming from the right wing right now. It's all like culture war or spreading Trump's election lies in order to further their agenda.
Yeah, and like there's been times when we've talked about on this show when mostly we talk about this in terms of, say, progressive organizing strategy, right? We talk about the inside-outside strategy, right? Is that you need people on the outside that are pushing, right? But you need people that are on the inside, right? Inside Congress, inside different institutions to kind of work from that. And then the most effective movements over time have been ones that have been able to kind of say coordinate, or at least, even if it's coordinating in a loose way, the inside-outside strategy, right? You want people on the inside, you want people on the outside, you want pushing. The outside is there always to push the inside, and keep them from, kind of selling out is the language we say, but not really. That's not the right word, but kind of always kind of be the check, right? Basically, say we're the power. Now you've got progressives in there that come out of movements, so you have less to worry about there, right? But if you have folks that are kind of they talk a good game, but they're fairly moderate, and they don't want to push things, they want to upset their job or their kind of the culture at their workplace, then you need to push from the outside. I have been increasingly looking at what we're seeing with this stop the steal stuff, and what Republicans are doing, both in state legislatures, local, and kind of for local elections, as in a sense the inside-outside strategy of the far right. Right. So, I mean, when I don't think there's any other way to look at the Republican Party, right, especially those folks who are holding elected office right now, as anything but the kind of the inside game of this right wing movement. And what's got me, we talked a little bit about this too already, you and I before the show, about the focus on Trump is really deeply problematic in my mind.
And
right?
Still a losing message.
Right. And it was yes, exactly. And
it was a losing message. Trump bad man is a losing message.
Trump bad man is a losing message. And yes, Biden won, right? But in terms of what we're actually up against, it wasn't just Trump. I mean, Sean and I have been kind of shouting this from the rooftops for as long as we possibly can. Yes, of course, we have to get rid of Trump. However, the problem is much bigger than that. And and you see this in some of the media coverage, right? You see this even kind of like on Twitter and stuff where people are saying, okay, look, let's follow what's Trump doing. Trump is doing this thing. Look, in some ways, Trump is only a signifier at this point, right? He's only kind of like a cultural referent. And I've been reading this book, a really freaking crazy book I'll talk more about in today's last call, but called Culture Warlords, by Talia Levin. And she basically shows, because she was inside these white supremacist movements during Trump, is that these far right folks, right, the whites, especially the white nationalists, the white supremacists, right, the kind of like Western chauvinists, whatever the hell you want to call yourself, those folks were distanced themselves from Trump pretty quickly. Right. I mean, by 2017, 2018, they basically saw Trump as sold out to the Republican establishment. right? So these folks basically see themselves as the kind of like, we're pushing from the outside. And now this also includes these folks in the, the QAnon sphere and so on. And that's kind of like that rising kind of insanity that we see, or say delusional, right? Or anti-democracy movements, right? That are pushing kind of Republicans and forcing them to basically take up some of the worst kind of racist policies, like the voter restrictions that we're seeing, in actual legislation. I mean, it's that. I mean, I guess I mean I don't know if you see it in that same way, but I mean that's kind of how I look at this stuff at this point.
Yeah, I mean it's like that. I mean, I think we're seeing with Mastriano is a perfect example. Like here's a person who who was only in office because he won a special election, which means he was handpicked for that seat by Rob Kaufman, who was on the trip on their their insurrection tourism, their conspiracy tourism over the weekend, and like he was picked by Kaufman, and he's now a state senator, and he's now someone who's actively undermining our democracy.
Yeah,
like that is where Mastriano went from 2019 to now, within like a year and a half, 2 years. Like, and he is one of the. It's just, I mean, it's insane. It's mind-boggling to think about. But like, just thinking about like this is about appeasing Trump. No, like these people will get rid of Trump as quickly as like they
right.
bombed on that. Like, do you think they give a fuck about Trump? Like with this stuff, no. This is about like undermining, our democracy, taking rights away, taking women's rights away, taking away free speech, taking away voting rights from people who are not white Christian men for the most part. Like, like they want to just like anyone who does not believe in what they believe in, like they want to destroy that democracy. And it's like, as crazy as this is going to continue to be a problem, like going forward.
Right. And what's really interesting, well, I say interesting, this is kind of like, interesting is really not the right word, but one of the things that you start to notice if you're paying attention to what's happening on the right, especially in the states right now with this voter suppression laws and with these election audits that they're going to continue on, is that they're beginning to openly question, right, the value of democracy itself. Right. It's like it becomes, the same, this is, we can't allow this. This is not expression of the voice of the people. You start to hear this kind of creeping authoritarianism come into, people's public statements. It's like that whole idea about saying the quiet part out loud, is that's starting to become more and more explicit. And if you follow political discourse over a period of time with social movements and so on, that's generally how this stuff moves, right? We've seen this happen in white nationalism and white supremacy, right? That, the racist and the Nazis and the white supremacists were always like, hiding in the dark recesses of the corners. And now these people are kind of fairly comfortable in the open. Right. I mean, yes, there's some people that are still kind of like concerned about it, but, I mean, you have, back when Richard Spencer was basically becoming the poster boy for white nationalism and kind of, neo-fascism and all this, they're understanding that, this is a cultural moment. And I'm always reminded of, the kind of the Breitbart thesis, right? That politics flows downhill from culture. That's their approach. Now we can argue about, whether that is true and blah, 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 but that gives us a sense of what their playbook has been. Right. And I think it continues to be. So these like audits, for example, they're performative politics. Right. And it is about a kind of a cultural commitment to a, it's not even like a set of values. You can't even say it's about that, but it's more like, are you, committed to this narrative as opposed to any other narrative?
And I think we saw that play out yesterday, like in a really good fact, once Representative Seth Grove tweeted, "No, we will not be interested in auditing the vote here in Pennsylvania, like at least in the PA House." Now the Senate's taking an approach, well, we might be able to do something. And like in Pennsylvania, we only need one chamber to pass a resolution calling for an audit. It's not like something has to go through both chambers. So like the Senate can actually do this. And the thing is, like with the Senate is like Mastriano has bullied these people Like, I mean, Jake Corman is a patsy at this point. Like, Jake Corman rolled over for Scott Wagner. He has no leadership skills, and he's going to roll over for Doug Mastriano. Like, and it just shows you, like, you know, he is there just to appease and not be a leader with this stuff. Like, just hands off and like, well, I didn't do it, but
no, but
you know,
and if you followed stuff that was in some of the comments when Grove tweeted that out, right? It goes to the base. Like, people were pissed at him.
Yeah, like, we're going to primary you.
Right, exactly.
Like, do this audit or else.
Right, or else. Right? And I think that again, that's that kind of commitment. You're going to follow the leader, and guess what? The leader is not the one who's sitting in the state house. The leader are you know, the conspiracy theorist and the kind of like, you know.
And it's amazing, like, watching that play out. Like, you know, in our group chat, someone put down, like, you have the ALEC board member and Seth Grove saying, no, we're not going to do the audit. We're going to attack your rights to vote through the legal necessary, the process. You know, we're going to do the sausage making part in private, while like Mastriano's out slaughtering pigs in public.
Right, exactly.
Like, I mean, like, that's just basically what it comes down to.
Exactly. I mean, Mastriano's kind of like, you know, rips the shirt off, holds like the knives up in the air as he's standing. You know, I mean, it's that kind of performative cultural politics, which is, you know, again, white supremacist, right? Misogynist, right? is like, you know, overtly racist, and, you know, all the while, you know, serving, you know, the elites. I mean, even though they like to say it's the other way around, right? You know, but this is what it is. It's very, very disturbing. And I was really happy, you know, this is the one thing that was, you know, I think positive, at least, if you want to come out of this, is that, you know, I give a huge amount of credit to the PA Spotlight. I give a huge amount of credit to the reporting from the New Yorker that basically focused on Mastriano, right, and all this. But we saw Chris Hayes at All In. I know I'm kind of jumping ahead a little bit, but Chris Hayes, All In, and Chris Hayes focusing on this anti-democracy movement on Wednesday and Thursday. It was excellent opening segments, and Mastriano figures prominently in both of those opening segments, right? Because he's seen as, you know, kind of a particular kind of like, you know, flashpoint. That is the guy who's saying, you know, the quiet part in public, right out loud, and is basically saying this is the playbook going forward.
And it's also like the audit is now becoming going to be a main issue in both Republican and Senate primaries, or the Republican governor and Senate primaries. I think Sean Parnell is latching onto this. You know, like the prominent, like they are using this to win these primaries here in 2022. Like, absolutely, and it will be, this is the purity test.
Yeah, like, and I think, and this is one of these things, and like, you know, again, the right wing has always been really good at kind of, say, nationalizing elections, right, and nationalizing strategy through culture, right. And now, again, part of that is that they've got, you know, a $1 billion media infrastructure that, you know, puts this stuff out all the time. I mean, this is, you know, from their little podcasts, like ones like this, to Fox News, right? And now kind of One News Network and all the kind of the right-wing Newsmax, all this stuff that is coming out. That's a huge media infrastructure that is kind of like, it kind of self-coordinates. It's not like there's one person that sits there and kind of dictates what the message is. They begin to kind of fall in line with each other, right? It's kind of like a little game of follow the leader, but it goes from the national level right down to things like in school board elections, right? Which is why, you know, you have Cyril Michaleko has been kind of focused on that right here in Bucks County. But why we focused on the kind of the school board elections here, why we saw in,
and it's also like something why we have to report on these people, like, you know, like
100%.
This is something that's uneasy for like older liberals out there, you know, who question the need of this reporting that like either Cyril's doing or we're doing at Spotlight, or just in general, like what Jordan's doing. Like, we've allowed these people to go under the radar for so long, and now they're an actual issue. Well, and it's like we have to shine a light on these people.
Yeah. And
like call them out on their shit. Like fuck this like whole argument. Like, well, you're just feeding into their logarithms, or you're making a celebrity out of Mastriano. Like, no, like, you know, the reporting on Mastriano, we saw with this good example. Like, we put those tweets on blast with an article a couple weeks ago. Like, now, like, those tweets and those screenshots are prominently displayed
right
on Chris Hayes' show and like other news outlets. Like,
Exactly.
you know, like I don't know if like Mastriano would have gotten the attention if it wasn't brought out that, you know, like these online sleuths with the sedition hunters and like others, you know, did this and stuff like that. Like, you know what I mean?
Well, look, this is something that, you know, we've talked about this before, like, you know, on Rick Smith's show, Elizabeth Warren's slogan was this, right? The idea is that you can't win if you don't fight, right? And, you know, we've got to have the fight, and the fight has to happen in public, right? And so, you look, this is when people start like saying like, you know, do you really think we should be kind of like reporting on them and all this stuff? I think the only proper response to that is a gigantic eye roll, right? I mean, like, that's it, because it's a look. If you recall, right? I mean, at Raging Chicken, this is something we've been dealing with now for like like a decade now. Right. I mean, when Sean was reporting early on about kind of white supremacist stuff that was happening in Pennsylvania
On college
campuses, right, was happening right in these kind of Klan rallies and all this stuff, is that the same people, right, or the same kind of people were saying the same kind of things. You know, maybe you shouldn't report on them. Maybe you shouldn't do it because you're giving them a platform. You're feeding them. That's what they want. Right. This is the logic that we hear. Right. But what the unsaid of that is the belief that if we're just quiet and we ignore them, they'll go away. And that is not the world we live in. Right. I mean, the only time that ever works is if there is a broad cultural consensus that racist behavior is like going to be shunned and shamed. We don't live in that society, right? Same, I mean, and I don't mean to say, you know, talk about only race, but right across the board, right? If you have an anti-democracy movement, the anti-democracy movement doesn't go away if you ignore them, right? The white supremacists don't go away if you just ignore them, right? The misogynists don't go away if you ignore them. I mean, do we not learn anything from like the Me Too movement here, folks? Right? Is like, you call people out, you bring it into the light, and that is how you kill the disease, right? And what strikes me as particularly like, you know, problematic, to, you know, to use a relatively neutral word, is that it's like there seems to be an underlying fear of actually having the fight, of begging to say, look,
we're holding these people accountable,
right? But it's like wait. And this is a broader issue, right? Where the Democrats are afraid that they can't fight, that they don't have a message to go on, and that is true. If all you're doing is trying to kind of run on like etiquette or civility, yes. Then if that's all you're going to run on, then you don't want to break civility, or you want to show that you're kind of like, you know, when they go high, you know, when they go low, you go high, or whatever. And like, you know, Sean and I have, and Rick actually said this on his show this week too as well.
Shove their face in the ground.
Yes, they go low. I mean, my what I've been saying is they go low, punch down. Rick went one step further. They go low, he shoved their face in the dirt. Right? I mean, the idea is if, you know, you just don't let them do it. You know, there is no ref, right, that's going to step in and say foul. Let's be clear. If you want to talk, who's the ref, right, in this game of politics that we have, right? There's only a few, right? It could be the courts, but guess what? The courts are packed with right-wing folks right now. The courts aren't going to do it. And I think liberals for a long time that lived through the kind of like, you know, the high point of the Supreme Court that saw these major cases that went through and, you know, gave us civil rights. That was an aberration in the history of the Supreme Court. We're now back to the norm in the U.S. The right wing owns the courts because the left has ignored it. Right? You know, justice didn't happen by itself. So it's not the courts. Is it going to be some sort of abstract kind of like civility god?
Yeah, maybe we should ignore
Emily Post rules of etiquette. Was that what's going to do it?
Yeah, like maybe we should just like ignore the QAnon people running for office and they'll go away.
Yeah, we turn up our noses at them and say, "Oh, they're behaving so badly." No, that's not going to do it. the only other ref, right? I mean, this is the game of the backyard game, right? It's like there's no ref. It's our side, ideally, in the preservation of democracy at the very least, right? And the authoritarians. And there's no one to turn to and say, did you see what they did? No, you got to win the game, right? I mean, it's like, I don't understand this hesitancy to basically call these people out. I mean, it's like, you know, on the one hand, people say, you know, the truth shall set you free. Well, then let's tell the truth. Oh, no, you can't tell the truth, because if you tell the truth, then it's going to give them more. I mean, whatever. I mean, it makes no sense. There's no internal coherency to that whole line of argument. Politics, right? I mean, look, what is democracy, right? Democracy is ultimately about who rules. The people are supposed to be able to rule in a democracy, right? That's what it's about. And democracy was that thing that was supposed to replace open conflict, right? The duel. Right? The battle to settle conflicts, violence. But at its core, it is about argument and fights. And we could have that in a civilized manner, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's like if we stop talking about Donald Trump and his white supremacy, he'll just go away.
It's
like,
insane.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, it's
I don't mean to, I don't want
you
to put it like that, but I mean, what it does not align with the history of social movements. It does not align with our current movement, and and matter of fact, we've had evidence to the contrary for decades now that model is a failing model, right? That the Democratic leadership that got us to the point where it said, like, we're just going to be like, you know, the good ones, the ones that rely on experts, and we're not going to organize locally. No, the experts will take care of it. That fails. That's why, like, the Women's March. That's why Indivisible. That's why DSA. That's why, you know, we could go list organization after organization. Make the road. This is why these organizations have stepped up to fill the gap, because the Democratic Party has not done it. Democratic leadership has not done it. And those folks who are still wedded to that and basically are trying to tell you to shut up and not report on the white nationalists in our midst, right? The best you can do, if you want to be civil to them, roll your eyes and move on. They're the ones you need to ignore, right? Anyways, I'm sorry for the diatribe, but Jesus Christ.
I mean, no, I mean, like, it's something that it's just infuriating. And like my response, like, no, I don't care. I don't care about the logarithms. I don't care about like we've gone too far with ignoring them, too long to ignore them, and now, like, you know, they're just actively undermining our democratic system, like, across the state, the federal, the local level.
Exactly.
Like, like, cat's out of the bag. Like, it's time to start, like, fucking going back on the offense.
Yeah, absolutely, right.
Like,
and you know, and I do think it's, you know, it's a good lesson. Look, and I think the left in particular, progressives in particular, have learned this. Right, is that, you know, there's the people who are running for office now, right? They're coming out from, say, progressive left, kind of, you know, again, I mean that broadly, aren't kind of like, I don't know, taken in by the narrative that, you know, we need to be civil. They're fighters, and it's great, right? And that's where it should be. Right. And we need to get, like, frankly, and I think, you know, Shanna was talking about this week, is like, you know, on Twitter, like, we need to get these freaking white guys the hell out. Right. Because, I mean, they have demonstrated, like, you know, that they are incapable and like unwilling and corrupt and horrible. Not that they need to sit this out. We need to bench them right in this game, because you know, increasingly. Well, anyway, I go on and on about this. So
I mean, I also, like, this plays into, like, the whole entire thing with Michael Flynn and his calling for like a Myanmar style coup. I mean, like, this goes right into the local level here in Scott Perry. I think he's, like, one of the handful of Congress people who refuse to acknowledge or condemn the coup in Myanmar.
Yeah.
Like, you know, Perry took part in the Stop the Steal rallies. Like, these people aren't going away, and they're controlling the levers of power. Like, and once they win the House in 2022, they're not going to like let a Democrat try to become a president in 2024.
Right.
If a Democrat wins the election, they're going to do everything they can to overturn an election in 2024 if they win a chamber or both chambers.
Exactly. And
it's just like people need to wake the fuck up.
Totally. And look, and if you need more proof, watch what happens this weekend. Right? Because I mean, if Donald Trump is useful for anything anymore, it's as a barometer, right? Like he's the windsock, right? Where he can recognize when a strong wind's blowing that he can catch and kind of like fill himself up with like, you know, the joy of attention. Is like he is going to some of these QAnon or QAnon adjacent conferences this weekend, and it's being billed as presidential addresses. And it's being marketed as we'll be hearing from the real president who will give a presidential address at this thing. He's back out on the road now. Yeah, he shut down his blog, his pathetic little attempt at blog. But guess what? These people are calling him to help them fan their own flames. And so he's gonna. You watch this. Watch it's gonna happen this weekend. I forget where this one is, but he's gonna be giving an address, and it's gonna start to dominate some of the news cycles. This is not a surprise. We can know this ahead of time. Right? This is not going away. The fact that these like what at one time were like extremist conferences are happening in wealthy hotels and are attracting quote unquote big name lineups should be all you need to know. Right? These are conferences that are not taking place in somebody's basement. These are conferences that are like 4 and 5 star hotels, right? I mean, come on. Crazy.
Yeah, and they're like costing like $100.
Exactly. You know, and so this is why, you know, again, if you look at, so as you talk about the inside outside, on the inside game here too as well, you know, definitely, I put the links in the show notes here today. Definitely, it's a really, I think, if you want to arm yourself with, say, you know, useful information to see what's actually happening and to see, you know, to check, and you know, actually for me, it's actually, you know, kind of tools, right? When I'm talking to other people, it's like this new Brennan Center report that came out, basically showing all the voter suppression bills that are coming out, 253 bills, kind of already. We've seen 22 have already been passed in 14 states. These are actual things that are moving through. So we see the reporting what's happening in Texas, right, where the Democrats basically had to, you know, kind of left and wouldn't provide quorum to stave off temporarily the passage of these kind of restrictive bills there. We see what's happening in Arizona. Right, we see what's happening in all these states kind of across the country that are trying to pass these restrictive bills, right? Georgia, for example. That's one tool. Another tool in that toolbox, right? What I said at the beginning is, you know, Media Matters for America has got this great list of the QAnon supporters who are running for Congress in 2022. You can see where they're at and how they're at. If you take a look at their, you know, they got a nice little kind of like chart right at the beginning. You say 5 are from Florida, 2 each are from Arizona, Nevada, Ohio, and there's 1 each from California, Maryland, New Jersey, Oregon, Texas, Pennsylvania, Georgia, and Colorado. 18 are Republicans, 1's an independent, 14 previously ran for Congress in 2020, and 2 previously ran for state legislative seat in 2020. The 2 from Colorado and Georgia are incumbents in Congress, and 1 in Florida is an incumbent state senator, right? That's just at the first page, and then it kind of digs down into this a little bit. So very, very worthwhile kind of making sure you know kind of who's there. I wish we could do this at the statewide level too as well, so we could dig into all the state races and even the local elections. That'd be great.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna have QAnon adjacent people running for governor, Senate here in Pennsylvania. Like,
yeah, and by adjacent we mean like, you know, he supplied the food right at their party, right? You know,
he brought the kegs.
Right, exactly. Even though he might not have stayed for the entire party, he brought the kegs. Oh man, like
we are just so fucked.
Well, but look, I mean, I think there's kind of good attention. Or Ross wants the list right now. Here, Ross, I'll put it in the Media Matters one. It'll be in the show notes after today, but here's the link for the Media Matters one. Yeah, but people are paying attention to this, right? I mean, this is why, I think we'll talk about in the PA focus here, which, we see the work that, PA Spotlight is doing, for example, exposing some of this stuff. And we start to see the coverage that people are actually framing the discussion from, say, the progressive or on the left, as the anti-democracy movement, right? And the rest of us, right? I think that's useful. But as long as that stuff is absolutely critical, but there's never enough time on our show, and even our show goes longer than it should anyways, but never enough time to actually deal with everything that's gone out there. Because I mean, this story down in Miami, just like, oh my God, like they're actually looking at building this 20-foot seawall right through the city, because we've reneged on a responsibility to kind of address climate change in any kind of meaningful way. And so now, like, it's too late to just kind of like say, oh, good, we're not going to have sea level rise. No, it's too late. What we're doing right now, the drastic action that's required now, is so that we don't end up in a dystopian future, right? That we have some degree of survivability, right? And some degree of kind of like, not catastrophic. But to see like a 20-foot seawall is being proposed to run through the middle of Miami, right? Because they recognize that town is, again, Miami is probably one of the most at-risk cities in the country. And so they got to run a seawall through the middle of freaking town, and people are freaking out.
Louis DeJoy.
Right. And then you got Louis DeJoy, right? The Postmaster General is like being investigated by the FBI.
Still has a job.
He still has a job.
Like,
well,
5 or 6 months into the Biden administration, and Biden hasn't fired him yet. Well,
I mean, there are some technical reasons. I mean, technically he could push to do that, but there's actually, I have no idea. I don't want to be an apologist for Biden, but I could actually see it as a strategic move. Because he keeps on saying, look, it's up to this, I don't know, board of postmaster generals. I can't remember what it is, but the rules basically are such that, there's a committee or a board or whatever like this that will decide whether or not he should stay or not. And yes, Biden can appoint people to there and things like this. But I think there is something to be said for basically saying, I'm not going to take, kind of play into this culture war over cancel culture garbage.
I think we have the fucking parliamentarian in the Senate this week.
Oh God, that's the other thing. I knew it. That was the other thing. That was
like the as you would say, the monk on the mountain. Like
totally, like totally. Sean, I nearly kind of like
fucking had a stroke.
Totally. When I saw, and it wasn't her ruling, right, or her advice, right? She's gonna say what she's gonna say. Right, she's a parliamentarian. She's going to have an opinion on stuff,
and it's just like the Democrats just be like, "Oh, well, the parliamentarian said, so we can't do anything about it." No, fucking fire the person, get a new one.
Totally.
Like, it's just like, it is so
it's like hold on, let me see what Hera says. Look up to Mount Olympus. And
yeah, we're gonna go to like the fucking the goddess or something like that.
That's what I mean. It's like this is insane. I mean, this is like okay. Let's just like take on it. You hire somebody, right? Say you say you own your organization, right? And you hire somebody to give you advice about particular things, right? Because one, it's like it's good to have somebody that specializes in one particular things that kind of gives you some advice about how to proceed and that kind of stuff, right? And they're going to come and they're going to give you advice, right? But this is a person that you've hired, right, to give you for the purpose of giving the advice, so that your group of people that run things can make a decision, right? And it's just a piece of advice, right? There's no nobody has to abide by it. Like, there's not gonna be a freaking thunderbolt that's gonna come down and kind of destroy the Senate if they don't abide by the freaking, I mean, the Republicans.
I mean, that would be a better outcome. Have the Senate get destroyed.
Well, at least that'd be interesting, right? I mean, this is just
it's just because Democrats are just like.
And like, seriously, it's like the reporting on it is like, well, the ruling, well, we don't know we're gonna like. I'll tell you, what you can do.
Non-binding.
You can say thank you for your opinion, right?
Have a good day.
We disagree. Fired. We're gonna do this other thing, right? I mean, Republicans have done that in the past,
It's just amazing. Like it just blows my fucking mind that like the Democrats are still doing this.
Well, and I'm sorry, but she gave a ruling, a quote unquote ruling, an opinion earlier on. If you recall, this is like a month ago, that basically said, like, like Democrats had 2 more bites at the apple, right, for reconciliation. That was her opinion. And now she said, nope, just 1, right? And Democrats are like, oh, well. I mean, but don't you just see what, don't you see that this is not the word of God? I mean, she just changed her mind, right? So it's just an opinion, just an idea, right? I mean, it's like, it drives me insane.
Yeah.
Because because what it does, it's the same thing that we started the show on, right? The idea is that you're afraid to fight. And you're afraid that by breaking some freaking God-sent code of civility that like the walls are going to come tumbling down. This is how you freaking move the needle, people. You fight. I mean, if you have friends that are Republicans, well, then freaking learn from them. They know how to fight. Come on, people. It's like we're talking about, I mean, look, just if you take just climate, we're talking about the basically quality of our lives and our children's lives going forward. We're talking about the survivability of parts of the planet. We're talking about how high is that seawall have to be in Miami? And you're going to say, we would have loved to make sure that like Miami wasn't going to be flooded, but the parliamentarian, right? Right? It's like, oh, it would have been great to protect your right to vote, but the parliamentarian, right? I mean, it would have been great to make sure, right, that your road
we got
wasn't
voting
falling
rights.
apart. Right?
Or we got like,
it's like, oh, I'm sorry, did your car get wrecked because the roads aren't fixed? But the parliamentarian told us. Are you serious?
Yeah.
Are you serious?
And it only gives more fucking power to Manchin about the filibuster.
Well, I mean, it's like, the more you, I mean, that's why, that's the other thing. I think you're 100% right. The more that you defer to like these, like, like codes that don't mean anything and give them life or give them kind of meaning and give them power that they don't actually have, right? The more that you give people like Manchin, like more authority so that he can get, I mean, the guy, I mean,
Jesus fucking Christ.
Exactly. Exactly. That's all I got to say. Anyway,
I think it's a good ending point.
Yeah, I think it's a good ending point. I mean, at the point where I'm going to like just go run around the house a few times before so I can come back.
Stroke out.
Totally. All right, everybody. So, listen, we're gonna take a quick break, and we're gonna head in today's PA Focus, where it was a fun few days, I have to say, and fun in yes, in this kind of like politically warped kind of fun, but but still fun. We'll get into some of that, but want to remind you that you can help support this show and all the shows that we got coming up. By becoming a patron of Raging Chicken by going to patreon.com/rcpress. We'd appreciate your support. You become a patron for as little as $5 a month. I mean, you think about it, right? Especially now everything's opening up. We get used to the prices in the world again. That like maybe you go out a few times, or if you're Sean, a few times a day, right? Have a couple beers, right? Like a beer, $5. Right, $5 a month, you become a patron of Raging Chicken, and kind of get access to our Discord server. We're going to start having some specific things. We got this kind of like book chat thing kind of in the works.
I need someone to help pay for my Scotch habit.
There you go. There you go. There you go. There you go. We're gonna have to have you record that and post it publicly about your expenses. However, though,
it's not gonna happen.
Exactly. All right, thanks everybody. We're going to be back just a minute right after this quick break. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken. We'll see you in a minute. Welcome back, everybody. It's Kevin Mahoney, Raging Chicken of Raging Chicken, as you can see from Sean's face, right? The joy that is on there, so you know it's fun time, right? And the fun continues both on Twitter right now, but all that's on. So, Sean, I don't know where you want to start, because this is it was the crazy season is kind of continuing and kind of ramping up, it would seem. And there's been all sorts of fun things that are going on. But why don't we just get this one out of the way? Daryl Metcalf's got his annual Right to Bear Arms rally coming up this Monday. That should be. Are you going?
Yeah. So your audio is dropping out a little bit, just to let you know.
My audio is dropping out?
Yeah. I don't know if I'm coming through pretty good, but I can talk about it.
Yeah, go ahead. Usually.
Yeah. So this week, this Monday, Daryl Metcalf is having his annual Right to Bear Arms rally. And I'll be bringing the guns to the gun show.
There you go.
just like, no, but it's pretty funny. This is yearly like rally. It's been interesting seeing how this has transformed over the past several years from your more conservative, not really that explicit white nationalists to like card carrying fascists and Proud Boys and stuff like that. So it'll be interesting seeing how this goes, especially with it being after the insurrection. The first one after the fucking 2020 election. Scott Perry's going to be there. Metcalf's going to be there. Yeah, Chris Dush is going to be there. That's so I'm pretty sure they're going to be talking about their audits and all the fucking crazy stuff that's going to be happening.
This is kind of like the beginning of the marching season in Northern Ireland.
I think we're talking to Roxbury about this. He's like, this is the beginning. This is like the unofficial start of the 2022 campaign, because it's like this type of rally, like it's this type of like yardstick. So, I mean, I could see Sean Parnell being there, Bardos, like all the fucking crazy people who have to cater to these people because that's who they are and that's what they do. Yeah. So
there we have it. So you see,
you're good again.
Yep. Okay. Good. Thank you. Yeah, this happens as seriously, if you got anybody who's listening who's good with audio and stuff, we've been having this issue, and I've mentioned this before on the show, where especially after either the intro or the break music coming back from that, for some reason it's just my channel drops off, right, for like a minute or so until it kind of kicks back up. So I don't know. So anyways, thank you for letting me know. I'm going to put my levels back to where they were. Okay, good. So we've got that. Now, we talked a little bit about this kind of at the top of the show, but we have Doug Mastriano made his way down to Arizona and was accompanied by State Senator Chris Douche and State Representative Rob Kaufman, too, as well. So that was kind of fun.
Yeah. I mean, I think we talked about that recently, but, it just goes to show you, yeah, I mean, I really love to see like myself or Eliza Griswold be on Chris Hayes' show. Simply because of the expertise I have in Doug Mastriano and following around for the past 2 years, and I think I am the most formidable expert on Mastriano in the state of Pennsylvania, and making me the most experienced in the country.
Are you working on your resume during the show? Is that what you're doing?
No, but I mean, I definitely think that they should be focusing more on, it's glad seeing him finally get to the forefront of this. This, we've done this with the chicken for years, and same attitude we have with PA spotlights, like just that break and push type of thing, and just all gas, no brakes, just break and keep on pushing this stuff out. And it's good seeing that work filter up from the state, the local, up into national reporting, and stuff like that. We fought pretty hard to make sure we were cited in those newspapers, and it's just been it's nice seeing the screenshots that we put out on blast getting into the national media filter, which is good. So,
well, yeah, and this is something we've talked about this as a strategy for kind of quite some time, right? That whole idea, I mean, what you're referring to there is this whole idea of break and push, and this is why it's so important to have kind of kind of pull no punches media, right? To have muckraking at a local level, right? To have people that are willing to kind of do the exposés, do the kind of the groundwork at the local level, right? And then having relationships that are going to be able to amplify that message, right? I mean, that was one thing that we worked really hard at with Raging Chicken in the early days, especially so building out those relationships so that, we had stories that were picked up by Mother Jones, picked up by the Huffington Post, that were picked up by kind of MSNBC actually picked up, kind of grabbed one of our stories and gave us credit for it, for the Rachel Maddow show once. But, things like that where these stories get picked up in kind of broader networks because look, these national publications, and this is also something that I think I slowly people are beginning to understand, but this is why it's actually so critical to have kind of soup to nuts kind of media infrastructure on the left, right? That idea that these national publications like The Nation or something, or In These Times or something like this, they don't have the resources as a publication to dig down deep into what's happening in state and local areas, right? So that's why you need people on the ground doing this, right? And then, but unfortunately on the left, right, we don't have the funding structure that they have on the right in order to kind of make sure that stuff's happened. So when we keep on pushing out and say, hey, become a patron of Raging Chicken, little as $5 a month, patreon.com/RC Press, right? This is why there's organizations that you like what's happening in their kind of media environment, is particularly the media and like places like PA Spotlight, podcasts like Sisters of the Night Caucus, podcasts like the Rick Smith Show. Make sure you're supporting those folks. So you want to build out that infrastructure, right? And then where possible, you want to be able to kind of build out those networks, because the reporting that you guys did, right, and the kind of that background research on this has really launched kind of a platform in some ways, right, for a lot of people to be able to kind of see what was happening here and to kind of build out their own reporting. So
yeah, I mean, we caught him lying about how close he was or how far he was from the insurrection, where he gave an interview days after the insurrection saying he left as soon as the violence broke out. Then like the people, sedition hunters online, were using our article saying, no, actually, he talked about witnessing the first two main breaches. Like our timeline pretty much like matched up with the timeline that he was talking about. Like we were able to put that timeline together from the New York Times reporting. And like that timeline became valuable for people looking at Mastriano with different timestamps, like, and finding him in different places on the Capitol that day. And then that reporting then makes it up to MSNBC, with Chris Hayes using it. I mean, it's just a profile. I mean, it's textbook in that case.
Exactly.
No, and I mean, like also like the reporting, I was going to say that the right-wing media infrastructure, we're seeing it here locally, like what they're able to do with these school board candidates. I don't like Cyril's been touching on it with with the Dom Giordano show and these people's outlets, and how the woman who runs this Keeping Kids in School pack, I didn't realize this till last night. She went on fucking Steve Bannon's podcast. like how can you not say, I mean, so I mean, I'll get into that in a few minutes, but a couple seconds.
I was like, are we going?
I'll circle back to that, but no, then you have the stuff locally, Dom Giordano show. You have Del Val Live or Del Val Report or something like that, which is just a right wing rag that does nothing but praise the Commonwealth Foundation, what they do. And then you have Broad and Liberty, which is a Commonwealth Foundation funded media venture in southeastern Pennsylvania, and the person who runs it, she was a lawyer for Trump who was pulling electioneering games before the election, tampering with ballot boxes, tampering with trying to file frivolous lawsuits, and tampering with drop boxes in Philadelphia, and trying to make it seem like the black brown people are voting improprieties and stuff like that. Because the right wing loves to use that type of those talking points when they're doing about when they say Philadelphia, it's code for black people are voting.
Right.
Like when they talk about voter fraud in Philadelphia, which is non-existent. And then you have them getting supported by Ryan Costello, who gave $2,500. And you had them, their main funder is this guy named Paul Martino, who is a venture capitalist, and he's very close allies with James O'Keefe.
Right.
From Project Veritas. And now I couldn't confirm this. I think O'Keefe has a book that popped up during the research where he names Martino as a former director or board member from Project Veritas. But there's reporting from the summer when O'Keefe was going to get married and his engagement fell apart. Fuck you. like his fiance ditched him before the wedding. Martina was one of the guests at the wedding. So there's documentation of him being an ally to
right.
Project Veritas, the people from Project Veritas. And then like, you have someone like, Costello, who gave $2,500, and I highly believe he knew what this PAC was about. People have been talking about the insane Facebook and Twitter posts and Parler posts of these school board candidates for months now, weeks, like leading up into the election. Cyril and others, like online activists, like this stuff has been circling around the Twitter echo chamber, bouncing around the echo chambers on Twitter for a few months now.
No, exactly. So let me just give folks an example. So this is from May 6th. This is Cyril Michaleko's reporting, right? When he was talking about exactly the things that that Sean is pointing to here, right? Let me just find, I just lost it. Oh, here we go. So here you go. So here's two of the people that are supported by this PAC. Cora Landis, a QAnon supporter running for the Palisades School Board, believes that FEMA camps will be used for re-indoctrination of conservatives, promotes hydrochloroquine as a COVID cure, and thinks George Floyd protesters are using black to create anarchy. And tweets, "We already had a minority Muslim in the White House." I should see if she's one of the ones that is definitely supported. I'll bring that up in a second. But then, of course, there's the Penn Ridge School Board. This is Cyril again, where the local Republican Party apparently wants to purge two Republicans they deem too moderate. One of its endorsed primary challengers is Ricky Chaikin, who posted to her Parler profile on Facebook with a Q superimposed on an American flag. Chaikin's social media posts have left a toxic trail of QAnon-inspired posts about child sex trafficking, transphobia, and hate. Right, so there she is, Ricky Chaikin, and this is exactly, and she is there on the, Keeping Kids in School PAC. There are candidates. That's the heading that you click on, and you want to see who their candidates are. Click on Penridge, and there she is. Right. So this stuff has been out there. So I don't know if you want to well, and I should say in the reporting that came out from PA Spotlight. Right. Points to the fact, go directly here is you got, here's the two primary funders. And you got Ryan Costello, right, is number 2. Right. He's the second largest kind of donor, right, to this Keeping Kids in School PAC. Right. So that is your kind of like as QAnon as Jason as you're going to get. Right. Yeah. So and that seemed to go over pretty well this week.
Yeah. When we got these reports in, I kind of knew Costello, bit of a social butterfly on Twitter, would have a fit when getting called out for this. But sorry, you wrote a check. Your name is on the campaign finance reports. People have been digging into this stuff, and people have been wanting this document for a while. You know what I mean?
Yes.
People have been very interested in this campaign finance report for some time. We had to actually call the county, get the count, write a stupid check for $4 to the county to get this document, and to get these reports. And then, yeah, they're able to hide it because Bucks County does not put their campaign finance reports online. It's an official document. So in Bucks County, you have to physically go to the courthouse and get the document yourself, or you have to call them and order them and pay for a fee and stuff like that.
Yeah, and just to confirm, just as I said before, Cora Landis, when I mentioned from Palisades School District, is one of the people that is supported as one of our candidates of the Keeping Kids in School PAC. So
yeah, and then you have, when we were sharing around one of the Ada Nestor thing, this is actually pretty interesting. So you have Ada Nestor, who she wrote an op-ed about our school board election to focus on education, not political conspiracies. I think she has some conspiracy theories out there, but it shows you when we shared, when you share an article in Slack, it gives you who it was written by. And here, the article was posted to the Broad and Liberty website by Michael Torres, who is the communication director for the Commonwealth Foundation. Again, another link solidifying the Commonwealth Foundation's role in these QAnon conspiracy theorists running for office. And also it shows you that they are running a a fake media website out of Philadelphia and providing these people with a platform.
There you go. Gotta love it.
I mean, like, yeah. So, I mean, like, it's our job as a movement now is to taint this organization enough to where it becomes an issue. I mean, this is $20,000 for a fucking school board race, which is like a lot of money.
I'm telling you, that's like, enormous. I mean,
yeah,
20. I mean, look, I was looking at,
I mean, that's almost as more money as like the mayor of Harrisburg who just won.
Exactly.
Like she won with $30,000, and these people get $20,000. Like, I mean, there are city council races in Harrisburg where people only raised $3,000 or $4,000 and won. Like, this money like goes a long way on local elections, especially school board stuff. When these are races where people might only put like $100, $200 of their own money in to like do things with.
Exactly. And look, we've talked about this before too as well. Is that when you start getting involved at the local level. Right. Like talking about school board races. Right. And with that kind of money, it's like, it's this weird thing about politics. Right. Is that because of the way that our media structure works in like kind of more broadly, people know a lot more about what's happening at the national level than they do what's happening in their own community. Right. Generally speaking. I mean, there's always people that are going to be involved. Yes. But with the school board elections, I mean, if you're trying to find out information about the school board, right, on who's running on the school board, and you're not someone that's just tapped into politics, it's not easy. Right. And so if you have somebody who's got $20,000 to drop on mailers, right, and drop on yard signs, right, and even like little banners over the central, over the streets in the town, right, that's huge because it gives you name recognition, right? And the more that you can cast that and make it appear that you're kind of a legitimate candidate and not some QAnon nut, right, the easier, the more likely it's going to be that you're going to get votes. Right. It's only kind of by exposing these people. And, the one thing I have to say about, the good thing about this Keeping Kids in School PAC is that they put all their candidates right online.
Yeah.
Right. Like, so, I mean, there's your list. Right. I mean, yeah. You go to their webpage and there's like drop down menus. Right. You say our candidates: Berks County, Bucks County, Chester County, Delaware, Lackawanna, Lancaster, Lehigh, Montgomery, Northampton. Right. Gives you by school district who their candidates are in those individual districts.
Yeah. And it's been good, and also big props, shout out to Ryan Costello for doing a really good job at amplifying the story.
Dude, yeah. Hey, let's get a little hats off there, Ryan Costello. Thank you. I
want to pull up a tweet.
Which one?
One of his many tweets from last night, but
last night, we should say that last night, that's Thursday. That's Thursday, June 3rd. It was a banner night in the kind of collective, like, I don't know, like spectatorship and participation in watching Ryan Costello just kind of lose his shit on Twitter and then proceed to kind of block everybody. Block you, block you, block you.
Yeah, 1 second.
So Sean's pulling it up. Let's just say that when the PA Spotlight story dropped about him being the number 2 donor in this PAC, right, and that being kind of like supporting QAnon candidates, let's just say didn't go over so well with Ryan.
Yeah, PA Spotlight, a left wing scam of leftover, left behind leftist journalists funded by left wing causes that support keeping schools closed. They libel me for supporting children over teachers unions. Putting me in the same sentence as QAnon is lawsuit worthy. Game time.
Game time.
And then he went on to call Eric a leech.
I mean, it's like
I then pull up an article about Eric being named like one of the top labor leaders, up and coming labor leaders in like 2015 in a Billy Penn article. It's like, labor activist fights for working people.
Yeah, right. I was like, imagine that. It's like, hey, look, here's a person who's trying to make your world better. Could you believe it? Here's a person that's fighting for working people. Oh my God. Yeah. And most of all, here's a person who is an upcoming and labor leader that's fighting for working people, and he actually gets paid to do that.
He works in the labor movement.
He doesn't do it free, Sean. He doesn't do it like a priest and vow poverty in order to help. No. He has a job, right? And that was the scandal And boy, Costello was he was pretty pissed. He was pretty pissed. It was kind of fun to actually kind of watch unroll.
Yeah. So I mean, it was pretty fun. But I mean, that's pretty much it. So
that's pretty much it. Sean just kind of he's involved with something on Twitter now, so it's just we'll leave him be.
People are. I'm getting message about a thread with of some stuff that Ward Fisher put up. So, but yeah, I mean,
no, I hear you. No, because it's like that. It's like, every time your phone rings, you pick it up. I don't. Sean, however, always picks up the phone, so you can always call.
Never. Yep.
Always goes. No matter what he's doing, doesn't matter, right?
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, it was fun watching Costello melt down.
It was.
And we were like, oh really? And just start like showing on the receipts, like, of all the people.
The best thing about it, right? The best thing about it from my angle, right, is like, if he had just not said anything, right, it would have had, it would have, this would have gotten traction.
You wouldn't have all like Pennsylvania Twitter.
No,
like
exactly.
Political Twitter.
Right. But by the fact he starts like insulting, like calling Eric Rosso a leech, right? By basically saying that, here's, how dare they say that I'm associated with QAnon? I mean, this is like, like George Lakoff stuff, right? If you're basically,
you don't repeat the message.
You don't use the language of your, the opposition, right? You say like, how dare you say I'm not part of QAnon? And you basically have told everybody that you're connected to QAnon.
I'm not a crook.
Right. I'm not a crook, right? It's this classic, right? It's classic. So that was a lot of fun.
Ross was like, don't respond. He's just amplifying our stuff at this point.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
let him go.
It's like click, 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 click.
He had at least like 9 tweets threatening to, like, a few of them threatening to sue us. So,
all I know is like, if the glorious thing about when somebody threatens to sue you, right? Especially if you actually kind of, if you're like the individual, then you don't have a lot of money. It's one thing. Somebody threatens to sue you and they want to come after you there's one word that is just one of the most beautiful words for people like him. You know that word, Sean?
No, what is it?
Discovery.
wait, are we talking about the TV channel?
Huh? No. I'm talking about the TP channel. What?
The TV channel, Discovery?
No. I'm talking about what you get to do in a legal case. Is that suddenly that you want to sue somebody, guess what? The other side gets access to a whole lot of information about you. So that's one of the glorious things about kind of lawsuits. So, Ryan Costello, put your money where your mouth is, right? Let's go ahead. You probably won't get this message from me, at least, because, you blocked me. So, but whatever.
And also like the fundraising opportunities.
The fundraising opportunities.
The PA Spotlight Legal Defense Fund.
Oh God, it's just too good. It's too good.
Yeah, like I'm done. I've had enough fun.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, great. So today, the one thing I also want to see, there's a good piece of legislation that Lindsey Williams is kind of really getting behind.
This pisses everyone off.
Yeah. So basically, I love this stuff, right? And it's actually what's interesting on this too, as well, is there are some Republicans that have signed on to this too, as well, or at least at this point seem to be behind it. But basically, it's going to require legislators to actually kind of like post their expenses, right? Because they get like per diems and things like this. And they have expenses that are coming out of their
I don't mind per diems.
No. I'm not saying I'm not.
Oh no.
No. I'm not against per diems. I think that's fine. But I'm saying that basically you have to post it.
Yeah, this is a bill that's going to go nowhere.
Well,
because
but what it does, right, is it puts it kind of shines that light on kind of one of the problems, because of course we know, because here's part of the problem, right? And everybody hates it because they're like, oh, we don't want to do this, blah, 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 because they don't want to be kind of like shown where the money is going, right? And like, if you've gotten used to not having to do that, then that's one thing. But the flip side of that too, as well, is that we know that, again, this is not the same thing. I want to be clear about this, is that PA kind of is one of those states that kind of allows bribes, right? Allows you to take gifts from lobbyists, allows you to kind of do all this kind of stuff. And it's all that kind of move towards transparency, right? Basically, let's see where this money goes. And the Pennsylvania legislators have been really resistant to any kind of sunshine there. So this is say quite interesting, I find.
Yeah. This is something that like Eugene talks about he was like one of the first legislators to just put all his expenses up online, and he remember like he did this back in like 2006, and he was getting reamed at in caucus by his own members for doing that because they don't like it when you do that stuff.
No,
So it's
right.
yeah, like this bill pisses off a lot of people, which it is good.
Yeah, I think
So-
it's great. I think he upset the apple cart a little bit. And a lot of this, this comes out in part too as well, is that, like Spotlight PA, not PA Spotlight, the other one, Spotlight PA and the caucus were basically wanting to find out where these, tax dollars were being spent by legislators and looking for the expenses. And they had to kind of go through a kind of a long process, and had to fight in order to get access to that information, which should be available, right, to kind of the public, a particular kind of journalists. But they had to fight for it, and then there were lawyers that were brought in to try to prevent them to getting access to what that was, which was more taxpayer dollars. But they finally got access to a limited number of things to kind of post it and say, look, this should just be part of the norm of what we do. So I find that really kind of like fascinating. I like things that kind of like just upset the apple cart a little bit. Anyways, and I'm not going to go into this like too much right now, but you got to follow. I mean, if you're not already following what's happening in the New Jersey GOP primary, it's really fascinating. I mean, it's like literally.
I think this is only a preview. Who can look Trump?
Totally, it is totally just a preview, right? So it's like so basically, Politico had a story on this too as well. So basically, you've got this guy Hirsch Singh, right? That he convinced, I'm reading from Politico here, he convinced a conservative website back in April to publish a memo from an internal poll conducted by Brad Parscale, Donald Trump's former campaign manager, showing that Singh had a lead heading into the state's June Republican primary, and that Trump folks were behind him. Then you got Phil Rizzo, right? He's this Baptist minister. He's also seeking the GOP gubernatorial nomination, tweeted a picture of himself with Trump taking during a fundraiser, right? So there's all this kind of like battle going on for the Trump base. And then you've got this third candidate who actually just might slip through, right? His name is Jack Ciattarelli, I think is how you say his name, Jack Ciattarelli, and he is may allow him to squeak through in the primary. And now again, he's not like actively courting Trump per se, right? But he hasn't denounced him either. So you got this one guy who might move through, but it's just going to get worse and worse as we move closer to the primary. And New Jersey politics are a little rough, so it's going to be fun. So do check that out. I'll be kind of keep an eye on that. I'll kind of bring you back news what's happening in Jersey or two as well. So anything else for the PA focus today, Sean?
No, that's pretty much it. Looking forward to the gun rally on Monday. Zach Roberts is coming back down to Harrisburg again.
Whoop,
So we're going to be hanging out on Sunday night, grabbing a couple drinks, grabbing some food down in McGrath or something like that. So, and catch up on the crazy.
There you go. Catching up on the crazy. What can be better?
So, I mean, it's going to be Monday's going to be interesting. That's for sure.
Excellent. All right. Well, hey, we're going to head in today's last call in just a minute. So we'll be back after a little bit of a quick break with space news and kind of some other kind of fun cultural news. And we'll get back to you. We'll be back in a minute. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to Raging Chicken's Out the Coop podcast. Here we are again with today's last call. where we talk space news. We used to talk beer news, but as I've said in previous shows, ever since all this the story broke about kind of the depth of the misogyny and the sexism in the craft beer industry, put a little bit of a halt on those kind of recommendations from any brewery, as just kind of way to let this stuff kind of shake out. It was another reason why, kind of like I said at the top of the show, that I'm very, very excited that we're going to have Erin Wallace on on the June 21st. She's going to be able to come on. She's the owner of the Devil's Den restaurant in Philly, and she's also the kind of the co-leader or co-organizer of the Philly chapter of the Pink Boots Society, and they kind of advocate for kind of women in the craft brewing industry, and are really kind of actively kind of combating the sexism in the industry. So I'm very, very excited about that she's going to come on, and so we'll talk to her a little bit about that stuff too as well. And then what I'm hoping to do, and I'll give you a little kind of peek into this, is that I'm hoping to start highlighting some folks in the industry that are doing good stuff, right? That are highlighting folks that are actively kind of combating kind of sexism in the industry. I can also tell you that if I can find, let me see if I can find this real quick, that I don't know if you, so a lot of this stuff kind of broke out when we had, I'm just not going to forget, I think her name is Brienne, I'm just forgetting her last name. Brienne, I can't remember her last name. I thought I had her stuff right here. Oh, here it is. Yeah. I did have it right here. Brienne Allen. She is the one who started the Instagram post. Basically said, "Hey, has anybody experienced, kind of sexist behavior here?" That kind of exploded in all people reporting, women reporting the stories of their experience of misogyny and sexism in the industry. And she is at Notch Brewing, right? And she has basically said kind of pretty forthrightly that she is she's a brewer. I can't remember what her official title is there. I'm sorry, not brewing, blah, 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 term of contractors. Anyways, she's a brewer, one of the brewers at Notch Brewing, and that is in Massachusetts, in Salem, Massachusetts. I did go ahead and order some beer from Notch Brewing, right, as well as a T-shirt from them, in part because she came out and said, "Look, they've been totally supportive, and I've never had a problem here at Notch. I want to be clear about that." And I thought that's one way of just kind of acknowledging kind of her going there, and a little note to the people there and let them know and stuff. So. So hopefully we're gonna be able to kind of being able to highlight more of that, highlights a lot of the kind of the women brewers in here. We did this a little bit with some of the African-American brewers, kind of a little bit or kind of earlier on in the year. But I think the more that we can kind of highlight and encourage that range of this, and at the very least, there's so much about the craft beer industry that I love in terms of like how it's located and structured in communities and kind of being community-based and so on. And so, if we care about that, right, we've got to make sure that that's going to be one is going to be equitable in terms of say gender, race, and particular when it comes to labor. But we'll get to all that. So that's the reason why we're not hearing you say the beer recommendation. Just wanted to come back and let everybody know that. But in space news, the big news this week was Bill Nelson. He is the NASA administrator. Remember, there was an acting NASA administrator up until recently. Bill Nelson was finally confirmed. He's somebody's a Florida congressman, I believe, but he'd been supportive of the space industry for years. Now he's heading it. And he came out, they had a press conference on Wednesday, and they have two missions that they announced that are going to be going to Venus. And this is like in that kind of space community, this is huge news, because there hasn't been a mission that has been launched to Venus in something like 30 years. And so they've got these two missions that are going out. One is called the Da Vinci Plus, and the other one is called Veritas. Veritas, no connection with right-wing media outlets, just going to be saying, right? But the fascinating thing here is that scientists, one of the reasons that sparked them, NASA to want to kind of kick this up a little bit, these missions to Venus up in their list of priorities, has to do with some scientific reports that had come out recently where they found what they believe are organic particles, right, that could indicate microbial life in the kind of atmosphere, the gaseous atmosphere around Venus. Right, so they can't, from here you can't penetrate beneath the clouds to actually see what's kind of, what the actual surface of Venus looks like, but they're able to get readings which seem to indicate there's this. So the Da Vinci Plus will specifically go to investigate that, right? So we see this kind of ramping up of what NASA is doing, is they're looking for, at the scientific level, looking for signs of life, right, in different locations around the solar system, which is pretty kind of amazing. The Veritas mission I think that launches before Da Vinci. And what that's going to do is, like, we basically have these rudimentary maps of Venus. Now, obviously, since, 30 years ago, more than 30 years ago, the technology and the ability to kind of map planetary bodies is just exploded exponentially in terms of its quality. So what this is going to do, Veritas is going to go and provide, say, more accurate maps of the surface of Venus. And so why is this all important? Like, so if you remember, if you go way back to the origins in many ways of the climate, like say global warming as an issue, right? And so we go back. So the guy, what's that guy's name, Sean? I'm forgetting his name. James Hansen, right? He was the scientist that kind of testified before Congress in 1983 or so. Is it Hansen?
I think so. Did he write Gaia or no?
No. I'm probably getting it wrong. I'm sorry. I'll see if I can look at it in a second. But when he was one that kind of exposed, say, what global warming and some other stuff on climate is, he started out as a as someone who studied Venus, right? Because Venus is basically closest to the U.S. I'm still the U.S. closest to Earth, right, in terms of its size. Right, in terms of its kind of like what you would think would be the ability to sustain life, right? Except in Venus had a runaway greenhouse effect happen on the planet, which turned the atmosphere into acid and all this other kind of stuff, as we know. So, Venus has been sometimes called the evil twin, right, of Earth, because, like, what could happen? But there's things to learn there about kind of what happens with those processes of these greenhouse gases and so on. So that's all fascinating. And plus, there's also all these other proposals about what would it look like to have, say, a permanent presence around Venus in terms of, say, whether it be a space station or whether it be kind of satellites or something like this. So that's kind of big news in the space industry with there. The other thing I didn't put in the show notes, but also the ISS is getting new solar panels. There's these cool solar panels that are kind of rolled up like carpets or like turf. Those just launched yesterday on a SpaceX Dragon rocket. And so they'll be heading up to the space station for installation up there, which is pretty cool. The other thing in kind of space-related news, as a Star Trek fan from way back, Nichelle Nichols, she was Lieutenant Uhura. She's, if you follow anything within, even television for that matter, the casting of her, Nichelle Nichols, an African-American woman, as the kind of lead scientific or communications officer on the bridge of the Starship Enterprise was groundbreaking. Right. At the time, in part because we did not see, right, people of color, right, in Star Trek. And Star Trek has done this consistently as part of their kind of ethos, right, about kind of expansion and diversity. You also had Sulu, who was like kind of an Asian man who was kind of sitting up front. But Uhura in particular, and she's called Uhura, right? That's a kind of a nod to kind of kind of the civil rights movement, about the kind of African nationalism and things like. So she's kind of there. Anyways, so while kind of Trekkies or even kind of like, TV people kind of know that the role she had, very, very little was known until fairly recently to look at like how influential she actually was in actually changing the culture at NASA. Right. And so there's a new documentary that's come out. It's called Woman in Motion. And it basically tells her story, in particular the story about how she pioneered the NASA recruiting program to hire people of color, and the first women astronauts in the 1970s and 1980s. And the documentary is now streaming on Paramount Plus. Absolutely fascinating. I've watched just a clip of it. I'm going to watch it this weekend. And it's really remarkable about, again, we talk about, say, representation. We talk about getting people in kind of positions of kind of authority. And, Star Trek in some ways gave her part of that leverage, right? And then she utilized that as a way to kind of really push NASA on a whole range of things. And NASA, you know, to the credit, eventually embraced her and brought her in. They did kind of recruiting efforts. They did, you know, trying to kind of target different communities, ways to kind of, you know, prevent NASA from becoming or continuing to be the province of primarily all white men. And really kind of expanding the number of people of color and women in NASA. So that's pretty kind of amazing. And if you look at NASA today, right, and the range of diversity is there, if you watch kind of, you know, any of the launches or things like this, a lot of the diversity that we see there is attributable to what Nichelle Nichols helped make possible. So you can check that out. It's called Woman in Motion, and it's on Paramount Plus. I'm not going to go through the list of the films here, but I'm going to put a link, Grist, you know, because it's summertime, people looking for different movies, different books, and that kind of stuff to look at. Grist, with the environmental magazine, put out a list of new environmental films that you can add to your watch list. Some great ones in there, some documentary. Some of them are, you know, like 30 minutes long. Other ones are full feature-length films and so on. And the last thing that I kind of have to add in is that, you know, one of the things I added a little kind of what you're reading thing to our Discord. So, you know, remind everybody who's listening, you can join our Discord, and can participate to the conversation even after the show's closed and kind of into the night. We're doing some of that last night with Costello, which is kind of fun. But one of the things is kind of books we're reading, and Cyril Mikaleko and I have been talking a little about this, is that will become one of the features of our Wednesday show. But so I just thought today to kind of close it out with some kind of good books. Of course, I got to plug How to Destroy Surveillance Capitalism by Cory Doctorow, who's going to be on the show kind of a little over a week from now, right? The 14th. So 7th is Monday, yeah, like that. So who's going to come on and How to Destroy Surveillance Capitalism? This is a really good book, I think, for folks. It's pretty short, right? If I kind of hold it up here, it's like, you know, it's like a pretty thin book, right? I mean, my green screen's getting it, but it's only kind of like about 136 pages or so, 38 pages. But what's interesting about it is that it kind of delves into this controversy over, you know, everything that's happening online with kind of the algorithms determining everything and kind of like Facebook Big Brother and all that kind of stuff. And he's got a much more, I think, nuanced understanding of what goes on, in part because he's, you know, kind of connected in ways to hacker communities, right, into the struggle for kind of free information online, the Electronic Frontier Foundation, and that he's got a really nuanced and interesting take on what it's going to take to kind of destroy this, right, and some of the wrong pathways, the ways of thinking about technology, right. So it's really good stuff. He's also got, you know, I've been reading his you know, his books too as well. One thing that I've recommended my son is this one called Little Brother. It's kind of connected to this one, is the book 2, which I'm, you know, reading, called Homeland, which is actually, you know, kind of stories of kind of young kids kind of like resisting this kind of surveillance capitalism and stories around it, which is really great stuff. So hopefully we'll talk a little bit about that too as well. The second book I've got to recommend is a book called Culture Warlords: My Journey into the Dark Web of White Supremacy. What Sean and I were talking about at the beginning of the show today is directly connected to this. Talia Levin, she basically spent a few years in the deep recesses of the white supremacist web, kind of like becoming, you know, an undercover reporter on what was going on in there. And it's like freaking disturbing as hell, where, you know, basically showing you cannot separate kind of misogyny from white supremacy, right? You cannot separate, you know, these distinctions about, you know, Western chauvinism versus white supremacy are kind of like irrelevant in many ways. But at the core of those places are, you know, it's about violence, right? And her argument there, which is what the argument we were making of here, is that basically, look, these spaces, by exposing these spaces, right, what you are essentially doing is saying, no, you don't get to hide in the dark recesses of the corners. And she said, because look, all of these kind of ideological moves and this hatred that is happening online, those are, especially when it comes to white supremacy and misogyny in those spaces, has a trail of blood. Right. So real people are killed as part of what's going on in those spaces. So it's a absolutely fascinating, if disturbing, book to read. I'd highly recommend that one. It's called Culture Warlords. And the last one, which is also connected to a lot of things that Sean and I talk about on this program. I have not read this book yet. This is kind of fresh in here. It's called Against Civility, right? It's called Against Civility: The Hidden Racism and Our Obsession with Civility. I heard a couple interviews with this guy. It's by Alex Zamalin. and it's just excellent. It kind of, I wish, actually, I wrote this article a while ago. It says, we are not all in this together, and it was an argument against this kind of like fetishization of civility. I wish this book had been written at the time. I think that what I was trying to get my language around and my head around, the argument I was trying to make there, Alex Zamelin is kind of like launched that into such clarity, and I wish I had it back then as a way to help my own thinking. But definitely, I'll be reporting back on as we go forward. So, just some suggestions for your light summer reading. So, Sean, what do you got up for the weekend, man?
Nothing really. I am getting ready to go on vacation. So
so we should say you are not going to be here next week,
or for the next 2 weeks or 2.5 weeks.
Next 2 weeks.
I will not be back until the first week of July.
There you go. And the first week of July, I will be gone.
Nice.
So So one of the things I should say before Sean talks about his vacation is that if I can make this work, this is one of the things. So for the next 2 weeks, I'm going to work on getting in some guest hosts, right? So that we could kind of do a little Friday thing. It probably won't be exactly the same format as what Sean and I have been doing here, but hopefully we'll bring in some guest hosts to the show and to bring you out to Coop for the next couple of weeks. The other thing I should say too as well is that in July I'm going to be away, and what I'm working at doing right now is trying to do some pre-records for the out to Coop live. So at the very least there'll be the kind of the Monday show that will have some pre-recorded interviews for then. I'm looking forward to it. I've got a bunch of kind of like irons in the fire on that. Hoping to hear back from some folks soon about some of those pre-records. But yeah, so you're going on vacation, man. So that's I mean, I know that you've been like, itching for this one for a while.
Yeah, this is where we were supposed to do this last summer. Obviously didn't because of COVID. Going out to my family. We're driving cross country, which is going to probably be a mistake, but we're driving to Colorado. We're going to Colorado Springs. We're going to Colorado Springs, Moab, Canyonlands, Arches, Monument Valley in Arizona, and also Zion, which is going to be fun. And then on the way back, we're going to be spending a couple days in the Smokies. So I am really looking forward to this. Super looking forward to going to Zion. I love the Southwest.
Yeah.
And the inland West. It's probably like one of my favorite parts of the country. When we drove through Zion like 10 years ago, but we on our way from Las Vegas to Bryce, and we couldn't stay there, but it's always been on one of my lists to go back, and I am super looking forward to it. Looking forward to doing some nice hiking out there. One of my places I'm looking to hike is this thing called Angel's Landing, which it's like towards the end of it, it's like on this spire, like this rock going up, and it's super narrow. It's only like 15 feet wide.
I know what you're talking about now. I know exactly what you're talking about now.
Yeah, and you have to hold on to like a chain rail, like walk. Yeah. So I'm looking to tackle that bad boy while I'm out there.
So you may or may not be coming back, is basically.
I may get to it and be like, nah, I'm not gonna.
Can I just give you one piece of advice for that? Like edible afterwards, not before.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea. Because I'll be definitely stocking up on the edibles while I'm out in Colorado for this stuff. But no, I'm looking forward to this. This is something that Angel's Landing is like one of those like hikes that a lot of people will go to. So it's one of the things I'm going to get up like 5 o'clock in the morning, walk out, and like get ready for that. It's going to be super fun. I'm looking forward to taking my camera out there. I just bought a tripod last week, so I'm looking to do some star photography, take an adventure into that. Got some other things to put all my computer equipment in. I got like a tech pouch for like all my cords and adapters and stuff like that, which is awesome. I have all that stuff organized. But no, I'm looking forward to it. It's gonna be like one of my first vacations with like my pro cam. It's gonna be my first vacation in like 4 years.
Yeah. I'm whatever. Selfishly, I'm looking forward to the pictures because, seriously, I think that, I can imagine you're gonna be able to kind of get some great stuff.
Yeah, no, I think it's gonna be fun. We're gonna visit. I think we're going through like a couple Navajo reservations, so it'll be interesting, like getting photos of that stuff. But I'm looking forward to it. I mean, the Southwest is one of my favorite spots, so looking forward to it. There are a couple of other hikes I might do while I'm out there. Looking, I can't wait to see Canyonlands and Arches and stuff like that. Like,
what's the place that has like, you know, I know Seth Khan is always, he's been down there. It's that those caves, those windblown caves that are all like striated.
that is
What is that one called? You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I know the cave. We've been there. It's a slot cave. It's in Arizona.
Yeah.
So it's actually on an Indian reservation. And in order to go there, you actually have to pay like $20 a person to tour that cave. But all that money goes towards, all that tourism dollars goes towards sending scholarship money, sending the children, kids on the reservation to college.
Oh, that's
free.
awesome.
Yeah, let me pull it up. Let me see if I can find it. Let's see. Antelope Canyon.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So we've been there before. It's actually pretty cool. It's not that big, but like the way the formation is, like it forms through like flash flooding and stuff like that.
It's just some of the most beautiful. I mean, Seth always takes pictures when he goes down there, and it's like one of the most beautiful like place. I just someday I got to go there, and we've been talking about going out next summer, do some of that just to kind of like, you know, spend a chunk of time. This year we're just going to the shore for a little bit and just kind of like detox and like, oh my God, like to slowly make our way back into kind of like, you know, non-pandemic lockdown ways of being. So cool. Yeah. Well, hey man, you know, I'm sure I'll talk to you before you go, but I hope to that you have an awesome trip. And for those of you, make sure you send Sean positive vibes and wish him well on his journey with his family across the country in small spaces.
There'll be edibles for that.
Exactly. All right, man. Well, hey, enjoy this weekend. Have a good one, and we'll be talking to you on the flip side.
All right. Talk to you later.
All right. Hey, so this is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken. Want to remind you that we got some great shows coming up on Out to Coop Live. Just go over to our YouTube page. You can check them all out. I should have by the end of the day today, have them all listed up there. And, you know, become a member, become a patron. Patreon.com/RCPress. See ya.